Okay, so you send over a ton of research on demographics.
Yeah.
A whole stack of it.
It is fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
But this one report really caught my eye.
Okay.
It's this McKinsey Global Institute report
Mm-hmm.
from January 2025.
Okay.
It's called Dependency and Depopulation, Confronting the Consequences of a New Demographic Reality.
Wow, what a title.
I know, right? I have a feeling we're about to uncover some serious aha moments in this one.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is that it goes beyond just aging populations,
Okay.
which is something we hear a lot about.
Yeah.
But it kind of dives into this much more complex issue. It's
Yeah.
almost like a scarcity of young people.
Youth scarcity.
Yeah.
That's not a term you hear every day.
No, it's not.
And it really, you think about all those headlines about declining birth rates.
Right.
But this really seems to frame it in a whole new light.
Yes, definitely.
It's not just about who's getting older.
Yeah.
It's about who's not being born.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Huge.
And they're saying that shift has these massive consequences.
Oh, yeah.
For economies, for work, for consumption, even for the social contract we all kind of rely on.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so buckle up, everybody. Because we're going deep dive into a world with fewer young people and more older folks.
Yeah.
All right, first things first. This report drops a pretty shocking statistic.
Okay.
Global life expectancy has increased by 7 years since 1997.
Wow.
That's incredible progress.
It is, but the twist is falling fertility rates are a much bigger driver of change than people living longer. In fact, 80% of the total population change is a result of declining fertility, not increased lifespans.
So it's not that we're living that much longer.
Right.
It's that people aren't having as many kids.
Yes, and so policies focused solely on extending lifespans might be missing the bigger picture here. We need to understand why people are having fewer children.
Right. So let's talk about these fertility rates.
Sure.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
We're not talking about an individual's ability to have children.
No, not at all.
Right.
We're using it the way demographers do.
Okay.
The average number of children a woman has throughout her life.
Yeah.
A kind of big picture measure.
Got it.
And globally, this rate is now below what they call the replacement rate.
Okay.
Of 2.1 births per woman.
What does that mean, replacement rate?
It's the rate needed for a stable population.
Okay, so
to keep things in balance.
Fewer babies are being born than are needed to replace the current generation.
Exactly.
What does that actually look like in real terms?
Yeah, so they give this example of Germany.
Okay.
Their population in 2021 was a staggering 23% smaller than it would have been.
23% smaller.
Yes. If fertility and life expectancy rates had stayed the same since 1960.
Wow. That's a huge...
It's a big difference.
Almost a quarter of the population missing because of fewer births.
Just because of fewer births.
It really drives home the point that this isn't just about an aging population.
Right.
It's about a potential shortage of young people.
Yeah.
And that brings us to this crucial concept that the report highlights.
Yeah.
The support ratio.
The support ratio. Okay.
So tell me about that.
Well, it's basically comparing the number of working age people to each person aged 65 and over.
Okay.
It's kind of a way of visualizing how many workers there are to support each retiree.
So as the population ages and fewer young people enter the workforce, that ratio gets smaller.
Yes.
Putting more pressure on those who are working.
Right, it's a squeeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The report says that Germany's support ratio is already so low that to maintain its past economic growth, each worker would need to add an additional 6.9 hours to their work week.
That's almost a whole extra work day.
Almost a whole extra day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It highlights how significant this demographic shift is and the challenges it poses, particularly for those countries experiencing it first.
Right. And that's another key point in this report, right?
Yes.
That this demographic transition isn't happening uniformly around the globe.
Not at all.
They break it down into these 3 distinct waves.
3 waves.
Let's unpack these waves.
Okay, let's do it.
What characterizes the first wave?
So the first wave is happening right now in developed economies, like the U.S., Western Europe, and surprisingly, China.
China.
Yeah.
Okay.
They all share one key characteristic.
Okay.
Their working age populations are shrinking.
Interesting.
In fact, the U.S. peaked in 2007.
Wow.
China in 2010.
Okay.
Germany even earlier, back in 1986.
It is kind of surprising to see China grouped with developed nations.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Given its status as a developing economy.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Well, it's because their fertility rate has plummeted to an average of just 1.2 children per woman.
Wow.
So far below that replacement rate we talked about.
So despite its economic growth,
yeah,
China is actually facing the same demographic pressures as countries with much higher GDP per capita.
Yeah, they're kind of in the same boat.
That's a really critical insight.
Yeah.
That means the economic challenges associated with this demographic shift
aren't
limited to just wealthy nations.
Right.
This is a global phenomenon.
Yes, very much so.
So what about the second wave?
Okay.
Where is this transition gathering momentum?
So think emerging economies.
Okay.
Places like India, the rest of Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East.
Okay.
Their working age populations are still growing.
Okay.
But that growth is projected to peak.
Okay.
Sometime in the 2030s.
So they're not far behind.
No, they're
those first wave countries?
Not at all.
And finally the third wave.
Okay, third wave further out.
Okay.
With a peak projected for sometime in the latter half of the century. This wave is all about Sub-Saharan Africa, which currently has the highest fertility rate globally at 4.4 children per woman.
So they have a bit more time to prepare.
Yeah, you could say that.
For this demographic shift.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that the report groups entire regions together.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because even within these waves, there's bound to be variation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
For example, fertility rates differ a lot across states in the U.S.
Okay.
Or between different regions within India.
That makes sense.
But the overall trends are clear.
Okay.
Globally, we're moving toward a world with fewer young people and more older folks.
Yeah.
And those first wave regions are already experiencing some major economic consequences as a result.
Okay, let's dive into those economic consequences.
Let's do it.
First up, how does this shrinking workforce actually impact economic growth?
Okay.
I'm assuming it can't be good.
Well, you're right to be concerned.
Okay.
GDP per capita growth. That measure of a country's economic output per person is fundamentally tied to the number of hours worked.
Okay.
And how productive those working hours are.
So if you have fewer people working, you have less output.
Right.
And potentially less growth.
Yeah.
But it's not just the number of workers, right?
It's not.
Older people tend to work fewer hours on average, too.
That's true.
So you have this double whammy.
Yeah, exactly.
And the report is pretty blunt about this.
It is.
They argue that the changing age mix, meaning more older people and fewer workers, is going to drag down economic growth.
Yeah, they're not pulling any punches.
No, they are not.
No.
Okay, so is the report just doom and gloom?
What?
Or do they offer any solutions?
Well, they do offer some potential solutions, but they're not easy fixes.
Okay.
Take Spain, for example.
Okay.
To maintain its past growth, Spain would need to quadruple.
Quadruple?
Yeah, quadruple its productivity growth rate compared to the past decade.
Are they being realistic here?
Well, it highlights the magnitude of the challenge that these countries face.
Quadruple productivity growth.
Yeah.
It just seems like an incredibly difficult target.
Yeah.
And Spain isn't alone.
No.
Germany's situation is similar.
Yeah, very similar.
They would either need to increase working hours per capita by a significant 6.9 hours per week.
Whoa, that's almost an extra workday.
Almost an extra workday. Or they would have to double their productivity growth rate from the past decade.
So it's clear that simply working longer hours isn't a sustainable solution.
No, it's not.
No.
What about China?
China, okay.
Their situation is particularly interesting because they're a first-wave country.
Yeah.
But with a lower GDP per capita.
Yeah, that's right.
Than most in that group.
That's a crucial point.
So how do they factor into this?
Well, China is facing this rapidly aging population.
While still needing to achieve significant economic development.
Right.
The report suggests that just to counteract the negative impact of their changing demographics, China needs to maintain a 5.5% annual productivity growth rate.
5.5%.
On average through 2050.
That's incredible.
It's a
5.5% year on year for decades.
Yeah.
Even for a country with China's track record, that level of sustained growth seems incredibly ambitious.
Yeah, it does underscore the urgency for them to find ways to boost productivity in a way that's both significant and sustainable.
Yeah, and it's not just about increasing output.
No, it's not.
It's about making sure that growth translates into real improvements in people's lives.
Exactly. Quality of life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about fewer workers impacting economic growth, but there's another side to this, right?
Yes, there is.
What about the growing number of older people and their consumption needs?
How are those changing as populations age?
Okay, well, that brings us to what they call the senior gap.
The senior gap.
It's the difference between what seniors consume and the labor income they earn as populations age. This gap widens, putting pressure on economies and social systems to figure out how to fund it.
So even though people may be working longer, they're also spending more years in retirement, requiring more financial support during those years.
Yes. Think about your own retirement plan.
Okay.
How will you bridge the gap?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Between your expenses and your income.
Yeah.
That's the challenge the report highlights.
For sure.
And it's something we all need to consider.
So how is this senior gap being funded right now?
Right now, okay.
Is it sustainable?
Okay, so currently it's being funded through a mix of government transfers, like pensions and healthcare, drawing down personal savings, and returns on assets. Okay.
But the report raises some serious concerns.
Okay, I bet.
About the sustainability of this model.
Yeah.
Especially given the uneven distribution of wealth.
So many seniors rely heavily on those pensions.
Yes.
And may not have significant assets to draw down during retirement.
So we're potentially looking at a future where a large portion of the population relies on government support.
Okay.
That may be stretched increasingly thin.
Yeah, and they point to the U.S. as a prime example.
Yes, they do.
When discussing how rising asset prices, especially in housing, have been masking the problem of this senior gap.
It's papering over the cracks.
Yeah, but what happens if those asset prices plateau?
That's the big question.
Or even decline.
Yeah, well, the report suggests that future seniors may not be able to accumulate wealth at the same pace as previous generations, given factors like rising housing costs and potential plateaus in asset price growth. So we could be headed towards a perfect storm.
It's a possibility.
Especially if we don't start adapting our economic systems and social contracts
we need
to reflect this new demographic reality.
You need to think ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty dire.
Yeah,
But amidst all these challenges, the report also highlights some fascinating ways that businesses are already adapting. And even thriving in this new landscape.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. I'm ready for a bit of optimism. After all that doom and gloom.
Okay, I hear you.
Let's dive into those opportunities and see how businesses are finding creative solutions to this demographic puzzle.
Let's do it.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
So we've seen the potential downsides of this youth scarcity, but you mentioned that some businesses are actually using this demographic shift to their advantage.
Yeah, they're kind of flipping the script.
How so? What are they doing differently?
Well, they're recognizing that this isn't just about overcoming challenges. It's about capitalizing on a massive shift in the market. And they're doing that in two main ways. Adapting to an older workforce and tapping into the growing power of the senior consumer.
Let's start with the workforce.
Okay.
What kind of adaptations are we talking about?
One key area is offering more flexible work arrangements.
Okay, like what?
Things like telecommuting, job sharing, compressed work weeks. You know, companies are realizing that older workers might have different priorities and commitments outside of work, and they're adjusting their policies accordingly.
It makes sense. You know, people might need more flexibility to care for aging parents.
Exactly.
Or just want more control over their time as they get older.
Yeah.
Are there any companies doing this particularly well?
Yeah, the report highlights CVS.
Okay, CVS, the pharmacy chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've launched this program called Talent is Ageless.
Talent is Ageless.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and it specifically targets older job seekers. And it's not just filling vacant positions. They're actively recruiting experienced workers and creating this supportive environment for them.
What kind of results have they seen?
Well, the report doesn't give specific numbers, but it does mention that they've seen positive results in terms of employee satisfaction and retention rates among their older workers.
So it seems to be working.
It seems like it, yeah.
Creating a workplace where people feel valued and supported, regardless of their age.
Exactly.
Really does make a difference.
It does.
That's encouraging.
It is.
It sounds like a win-win for both the company and the employees.
Absolutely.
Are there other examples of companies taking similar approaches?
Yeah, for sure.
Like who?
ANZ, a major bank in Australia and New Zealand, has implemented this comprehensive age diversity strategy.
Okay, what does that look like?
So they really focus on creating this workplace culture where age is no barrier.
Okay.
They offer career extension options, eliminate age-based qualifications for advancement, and even use age-inclusive language in their recruitment materials.
It's about more than just hiring older workers. Yeah. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued.
Absolutely.
And has the opportunity to grow.
Yes.
Regardless of how many birthdays they've celebrated.
You've hit the nail on the head.
It's a real shift in mindset.
It is.
And this shift extends beyond the workplace.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Savvy businesses are also realizing that the growing senior consumer market presents this huge opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not just about selling them products designed for old people.
No, not at all.
It's about understanding their diverse needs.
Exactly.
Or preferences.
We need to ditch those outdated stereotypes and really drill down into what seniors want.
And some companies are already leading the way.
They are. Take Nestle, for example.
Okay, Nestle, the food and beverage giant.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are shifting their focus away from baby food.
Interesting.
And towards senior nutrition products.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If there are fewer babies and more seniors, why not cater?
Right, exactly.
To the growing demographic.
It's smart business.
And it's not just about the big players.
No.
The report also highlights Vyar.
Vyar.
An Israeli company developing innovative sensor technology.
Interesting.
To help detect falls.
Okay.
And reduce mobility among older adults.
Wow, that's important.
So is it like those alert systems you see advertised on TV?
It's similar, but much more sophisticated.
Okay.
So instead of using cameras, which can be intrusive, it uses radar systems to detect changes in movement and alert caregivers if needed.
It's designed with privacy in mind.
Yes.
Offering peace of mind for both seniors and their families.
Absolutely.
It's incredible how technology can be harnessed.
It really is.
To address these real-world needs.
Yeah.
It's like a safety net for seniors who want to maintain their independence. You're right. It's all about empowering seniors to live their lives to the fullest.
Yes.
And sometimes that means addressing those less obvious needs.
Okay.
The report highlights this fantastic example from Jumbo supermarkets.
Jumbo supermarkets? Okay.
In the Netherlands.
Okay.
What do they do?
They created these special checkout lanes.
Okay.
Called chat checkout lanes.
Chat checkout?
Yeah.
Okay.
These lanes are specifically for seniors who want to take their time, chat with the cashier, and combat loneliness.
That's such a simple yet brilliant idea.
It is.
I'm sure it makes a world of difference.
I think so.
For those seniors who might not have a lot of social interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
It shows that businesses can cater to the social and emotional needs of their customers, not just their practical ones.
And that can build incredible loyalty.
Oh, for sure.
And goodwill.
It's not just about selling groceries.
Right.
It's about fostering a sense of community and connection.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so we've got companies adapting their hiring practices, developing innovative products, and even rethinking their checkout lanes.
It's amazing.
It's inspiring to see businesses embracing this demographic shift.
It is.
But it's not just up to businesses to adapt.
That's true.
Right.
Governments also have a critical role to play.
Okay.
In navigating these changes and creating a society that supports its aging population.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about the policy side of this demographic transition.
Right.
What are some of the key areas where governments need to step up?
Well, one of the most pressing issues is ensuring the fiscal sustainability of pension systems.
I think, as we discussed.
Yeah.
These systems are coming under increasing strain.
Yes.
As the ratio of workers to retirees shrinks.
So what can governments do to address this?
Yeah, because it sounds like a pretty complex problem.
It is a tough one.
With no easy solutions.
No, but the report does suggest a few potential approaches.
Okay, like what?
One is to encourage citizens to start saving for retirement earlier in their lives.
Okay, so start earlier.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Maybe through tax advantage savings plans.
Okay.
Or other incentives.
So it's about promoting personal responsibility.
Yeah.
But also providing the support structures
to
make that possible.
Yeah.
What else is on the table?
Another area where governments can make a big difference is in promoting age-friendly workplaces.
Okay, we've seen how successful companies like CVS and ANZ have been in creating these flexible work arrangements.
Yes.
And fostering inclusive work cultures.
Right.
So how can governments incentivize this across all sectors?
Well, they can do it through tax breaks,
Okay.
subsidies, or even by leading by example in their own hiring practices.
If we want to keep older workers engaged and productive, we need to create workplaces that meet their needs and value their experience.
Exactly.
And then there's the elephant in the room.
No.
Healthcare costs.
Yes, that's a big one.
As people live longer, the demand for healthcare, particularly long-term care, is going to rise.
Absolutely.
And that's going to put a huge strain on government budgets.
It is a daunting challenge.
Does the report offer any potential solutions in this area?
It does.
Like what?
They suggest exploring ways to make healthcare more affordable and accessible, perhaps through innovative payment models or by investing heavily in preventative care.
It's about finding ways to control costs while also ensuring that seniors have access to the care they need.
It's a tough balancing act. But it's not just about healthcare. Governments also need to think about designing public services and infrastructure that cater to the needs of an aging population.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. Think about urban planning. We need more senior-friendly housing, accessible transportation, and community spaces that foster social interaction.
So it's about more than just providing for their physical needs.
It is.
It's about creating a society that values their contributions.
Yes.
And helps them stay connected.
Absolutely.
And that includes addressing the issue of social isolation and loneliness.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Which we know can have a significant impact on seniors' well-being.
Absolutely.
So how can governments help with that?
They can play a role in this by funding community programs. Supporting senior centers and raising awareness about this often overlooked issue.
It sounds like there needs to be a real shift in mindset.
Yes.
Both at the individual and societal level.
I agree.
We need to move away from thinking of aging as a problem to be solved.
Right.
And start seeing it as a natural part of life.
Yeah.
With its own unique set of opportunities.
I couldn't agree more. We need to let go of those ageist stereotypes and embrace the wisdom, the experience, and the resilience that older adults bring to our communities.
And it's not just about celebrating seniors.
Right.
It's about fostering intergenerational connections.
Yes.
And understanding.
Absolutely.
We need to break down those age-based silos.
I agree.
And create opportunities for people of all ages to learn from each other, support each other, and build a more inclusive society.
Multi-generational society.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From business adaptations to government policies. But at the end of the day, this all comes down to us as individuals.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
What can we be doing to prepare for this new demographic reality?
That's the key question.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
It is.
By these massive global trends and think there's nothing we can do as individuals.
Yeah.
But the reality is, each of us has a role to play in shaping the future.
Absolutely.
So where do we even begin? What are some tangible steps individuals can take?
Well,
okay, so we've talked about adapting to an older workforce.
Yeah.
And a growing senior consumer base in those first wave countries.
Right.
But what about the regions where this demographic shift is just getting started?
Okay.
What does this youth scarcity mean for them?
That's where the report gets really fascinating.
Okay.
These later wave regions, mainly in emerging economies, have a unique opportunity. They can learn from the mistakes of the first wave countries and chart a different course.
So they can avoid those pitfalls we discussed, like strained pension systems and that looming senior gap.
Yeah, they can kind of leapfrog.
Okay. But didn't you say they're also working against a ticking clock?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
They need to act decisively while they still have what's called the demographic dividend.
Okay, remind me what that means again.
Okay, so the demographic dividend is the economic boost a country gets when its working age population is growing faster than its dependent population.
So more workers mean more output.
Exactly.
More potential for economic growth.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sweet spot.
Okay. So for those later wave regions, this is a window of opportunity.
It is.
To make some smart investments.
Yeah.
And really capitalize on their growing workforce.
Absolutely.
But you said that dividend is declining, right?
It is in most of those regions.
Okay.
Except for Sub-Saharan Africa, which still has a very high fertility rate.
Okay.
This demographic dividend is shrinking.
Okay.
And that's why the report emphasizes the urgency for these countries to act now.
So what are the key takeaways for them?
Okay.
Where should they be focusing their efforts?
Well, the report highlights 3 crucial areas.
Okay.
Boosting productivity.
Okay.
Increasing labor force participation, especially among women.
Okay.
And designing sustainable support systems for their aging populations.
Let's start with productivity.
Okay, productivity.
We've talked about how productivity is crucial for any economy.
It is.
But why is it particularly important for these later wave regions?
Okay, well, remember how global demographics are shifting. We're essentially moving labor from those first wave countries where productivity is generally high to these later wave regions where productivity is often lower.
So if productivity doesn't increase in those later wave regions, we could actually see a decline in overall global productivity.
Exactly. The report estimates that if productivity per hour of work remains constant, global productivity could actually drop by 12%.
12%?
By 2050.
Wow, that's a huge
big number.
Potential loss.
Yeah.
It really drives home the interconnectedness of the global economy.
It does.
And why investing in productivity growth across all regions is so important.
Absolutely.
It's not just about avoiding a global decline.
Right.
It's about making sure those later wave regions can capitalize on their demographic dividend and achieve sustainable economic growth.
That's the goal.
So how do they boost productivity? What are some concrete steps they can take?
Well, the report suggests a range of solutions.
Okay.
From investing in education and infrastructure to fostering innovation and entrepreneurship.
So it's about creating an environment where businesses can thrive.
Yeah.
And workers can acquire the skills they need to compete in a globalized economy.
Yeah. Give them the tools they need.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about labor force participation?
Labor force participation.
Why is that so important?
Okay.
And why the specific focus on women?
Well, we've seen in places like India, for example, that declining female labor force participation has actually contributed to a decrease in overall labor intensity.
So there's a huge potential economic gain.
There is.
If these regions can close the gender gap.
Yeah, close that gap.
In labor force participation.
Absolutely.
It's not just about fairness and equality.
Right.
Though those are certainly important.
Of course.
It's also about smart economics.
Yes, it makes economic sense.
And the report points to some key policy changes that can make a big difference.
Like what kind of changes?
Such as providing affordable childcare. Offering generous parental leave policies.
Yeah.
And addressing gender discrimination in the workplace.
Right. It's about creating a supportive environment where women can fully participate in the economy.
Okay, those are all important points.
Yeah.
So we've got boosting productivity and getting more women into the workforce.
Yep.
What about those support systems for aging populations?
Yeah.
I imagine they're going to need those eventually, too.
They are, even though these later wave regions are still experiencing this demographic dividend. They're also going to face the challenges of an aging population down the line. And they have a unique opportunity to learn from the mistakes of those first wave countries.
You're talking about those overstretched pension systems?
Yes.
And the rising costs of healthcare, right?
Yeah, all of that.
What can they do differently?
Well, the report emphasizes the importance of designing pension systems that are financially sound. Encourage individual savings and take into account the specific circumstances of each region.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yes.
Between providing a safety net and fostering individual responsibility.
It is a balancing act.
What about healthcare?
Healthcare, okay. Are there any innovative solutions they can explore?
Absolutely.
Like what?
Some countries are experimenting with programs that provide financial assistance to seniors in exchange for their participation in health and wellness programs.
So it's a way of investing in preventative care.
Exactly.
And promoting healthy aging.
Yes, encouraging people to take care of themselves.
That's an interesting approach.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be beneficial for both the individuals and the healthcare system as a whole.
Absolutely a win-win.
It's also about exploring alternative models of long-term care.
That are both affordable and effective.
Right? We need to find solutions that work.
There's a lot of innovation happening in this space.
There is.
And later wave regions have the chance to be at the forefront.
Yeah, they can really lead the way.
Of that.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
No.
Definitely not.
It's going to take a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
And a lot of creative thinking.
Absolutely. We need to think outside the box.
It's not just about implementing policies.
Right.
It's about fostering a cultural shift.
Yes.
That values older adults and sees aging as a natural part of life.
A positive part of life.
So it's a demographic transition.
Yes.
But it's also a human transition.
Well said. It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Yes.
And working together to build a world that works for everyone.
Yeah.
Regardless of their age.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has been fascinating.
It's clear that these demographic shifts are going to have a profound impact on every corner of the world. They will, but I'm optimistic.
Okay.
We have the knowledge, the tools, and hopefully the collective will to navigate these changes and create a brighter future.
It's going to require collaboration.
Yes.
Innovation.
Yes.
And a willingness to challenge our assumptions about aging.
Absolutely.
But I think you're right. There is reason for optimism.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
This isn't just about surviving these demographic shifts.
Right.
It's about using them as an opportunity to build a more equitable, sustainable, and fulfilling world for all generations.
That's a great note to end on.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away?
I hope they come away feeling empowered.
Empowered, okay.
These are complex challenges, but they're not insurmountable.
Right.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future, and that starts with understanding the forces at play and being open to new ways of thinking and doing.
I agree. So, to our listeners, what stood out to you most in this deep dive?
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
What questions does it raise for you about the future? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, let us know.
Maybe even explore them in another deep dive someday.
Until then, keep diving.